The feedback keeps rolling in. It keeps coming. People are just saying how much the connections they made here have paid off. They're talking about how much they learned. They're happy that they can go back and talk about their CME that they received. It is all of these things people have been talking about. And if you haven't heard about it yet, you are going to in this episode.
Welcome to the Licensed to Live show, where professionals, doctors, champions, VIPs, attorneys, and those in public office discover strategies that help you restart and gain what is lost when you find yourself accused. If another has doubted your integrity, questioned your credentials, or caused your actions to come under scrutiny, you are in the right place. On the other hand, if you have never felt the knot in the pit of your stomach when legal papers are served, the heartbreak of disappointing your family when the lock clicks shut on handcuffs, or had to appear before a board of review, then be aware, the longer you serve, the more likely you are to find yourself under the microscope of those who judge. Prepare yourself for this uncomfortable possibility. Now, here's your host, Dr. Jarrett Patton.
Welcome to episode 124 of Licensed to Live. My name is Dr. Jarrett Patton, and I'm your host for our journey together today and every day you choose to listen to this show. If you or anyone you know has been dissed in their career, please invite them to join us along this journey. Simply go to your favorite podcast player. iHeartRadio, Pandora, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Hit subscribe, and then you will be tuned in for the most up-to-date information about career and life changes. Today is going to be part two of what you may have missed, hashtag LTL22, if you weren't there in person. And if you were there in person, well, you know what went down. But if you weren't, we're going to talk a little bit about what you may have missed. At License to Live, the conference 2022, it was live in the Bellevue Hotel in Philadelphia. We had an amazing setting. We had an amazing lineup of speakers. I believe the program is still available if you go to licensetolive.com. And you can go there if you want to see the replay in its entirety. Go to licensetolive.com, get that replay, and we're working on making sure you get your CME credits too, or CEUs, or other continuing ed credits. So check everything out at licensedtolive.com. So before we get started, you know we always like to thank our sponsors. Let's roll those commercials. Hey, this is Dr. Jarrett Patton. Do you need more positivity in your life? No matter what part of your life you want to transform, positive affirmations can help you achieve your goals. But sometimes making permanent changes can be difficult. Designed with you in mind, License to Live. Daily affirmations to rebuild your life will inspire and equip you to become the best version of yourself. License to Live. Daily affirmations to rebuild your life will set you on the path to changing your mindset, beliefs, speech, and ultimately your actions. You can change your life now by getting your copy at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your finer book retails, or licensedtolive.com. That's licensedtolive.com.
Something smells good. EH3 coffee. EH3 coffee. Premium organic. Nothing better than waking up. EH3 in your cup. Premium organic. EH3 coffee. Nothing better than in the middle of your day. EH3 coffee. Premium organic. EH3 coffee.
This is Super Bowl champion Mike Logan, and you are listening to License to Live.
I did talk about affirmations a lot during the conference. It was kind of inadvertent I know I came out with a new sizzle reel, and if you haven't seen the new sizzle reel, the draft is up on YouTube. I'm not keeping it up there too much longer, but it's Dr. Jarrett Sizzles Part 2. If you're looking for it, it'll come right up. And that one just had a lot to do with affirmations, because License to Live, daily affirmations to rebuild your life, is still available. And as people have been incorporating these positive statements into their life, guess what? Positive things are happening, just like positive things were happening on the LTL 22 stage this year, where we just had so many great speakers. And if you missed episode 123, we started talking about some of the great speakers that led it off and some of the things that were key learnings in the place. So remember, if you have not seen the conference in its entirety and you want to check it out, go to licensedtolive.com. Well, first, I want to talk about leadership coach Dr. Lisa Herbert. She is a best-selling author. She is a leadership coach. She has held leadership positions in national companies, local companies, and she continues to do her work around leadership. And the best thing I liked about her presentation, as she was talking to us about leadership and what it means to be a leader in the midst of healthcare and an already chaotic situation, she stood right up and gave us 5 behaviors so that you can stand out as a leader. Check these out.
So some common myths about leadership is that it's the dark side of medicine. I'm going to be shunned out. I'm not going to have a voice. They're not going to hear me. I'm not going to be valued. Those are all myths. It's the way in which you show up as a leader and the way in which you approach a situation that's going to make you successful. So as a leader, you will be called to go first, and that will require courage. But in stepping out, you will give the gift of courage to those who are watching. So think about your own journey. Think about, like, when I talked about being the first one to go to college, or the first one to go to medical school, the first one to become a doctor. If we don't have the courage to step out into these leadership roles, then we're not going to have people who will follow us and do the same. And we're going to lose this pipeline of leaders that we need in order to transform the healthcare system. So here are 5 behaviors that you need to stand out as a leader. The first is you have to develop strong interpersonal skills, the ability to be able to actively listen and work across teams. You have to have a high degree of emotional intelligence. So that is the awareness of the ability of how your own emotions and also how you manage the emotions of others. Research has shown that the best leaders have the highest emotional intelligence. So that's really something to look at. Conflict management, right? You have to be able to manage conflict. Conflict is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. So we have to be able to make sure that we're able to effectively manage it so that we can reduce or create rather a more inclusive environment, so that we're not delaying progress, so that we're more efficient, and we're able to have these relationships in the workplace. The third is to embrace fear and failure. So we know as physicians, failure really isn't an option, right? Because we are dealing with life and death for the most part. So failure isn't an option. But as a leader, you have the opportunity to be able to try new things, to do new things, to create different ideas and projects, which may cause you at times to be fearful about it. And sometimes you may fail. But that's okay. Failure is necessary because sometimes it is a way to show you to go into a different direction. But failure sometimes is a way that we sort of learn from our previous mistakes as well. And then the last behavior is influence. So leaders really need to be able to influence others in order to move in a different direction and to carry out change. We have to understand really how to deal with people who have different ideas, different opinions, and different interests. The buck doesn't always stop with us, right? So we have to be able to make sure that other people are feeling valued and that they're feeling included in decision making.
Dr. Lisa told such an incredible story about her leadership journey on the stage as well. But it all comes back to that. It's just having the courage to stand up and do something, but taking that communication, that emotional intelligence, conflict management, and really embracing fear and failure. And you've heard me talk about that part on this show before, that fear and failure drive you to make some pretty irrational decisions. But if you just accept that as a part of your change process and accept that as a part of your improvement process, you will move forward. And finally, it's all about influence. As leaders, we must make that influential statement that gets people to move. So Dr. Lisa gave a great presentation, and that led us on to talk about mentorship. I took the stage again, really talking about mentorship and how mentorship in our lives as adults takes different forms. Maybe when we're younger, maybe when we're a new physician, we had mentors at the ready. And as time goes on, you gain your leadership skills, you gain your clinical skills. You still look for advice and guidance, but sometimes those mentees kind of disappear. They say, oh, they've got it. They're doing their thing. They're a rock star. They don't need my help. And then you kind of left on your own. And I remember a time in my physician executive days that I was really seeking out some mentorship. So I just went to the source and I said, if I want to be CEO of a hospital, well, I need to be spending time with CEO of the hospital. And I asked 2 consecutive CEOs of hospitals if they would mentor me. And it was an invaluable time that I could spend an hour every month on a busy CEO schedule, but it gave me so much insight on the way a CEO's mind operates. And to be able to get that from a couple of different people is amazing. So shout out to Dr. Ron Swinford. Shout out to Dr. Elliot Sussman, or 2 people by name I'm going to call out on the show who really gave me some insight that really helped shape my career and helped it take off. But mentorship for youth can look different, and it's about being involved. And I stopped the presentation to bring up our Mentee of the Year. At Dr. Jarrett, we take on some youth mentees every year because, well, they can't pay for mentors. They don't have jobs yet, but they really want to develop themselves. And our Mentee of the Year, he likes high-end things. So he loved coming to License to Live. He loved seeing the historic Bellevue Hotel in Philadelphia and all the great things that we were eating there. He was picking up all of that. But our relationship was huge because he wanted to become a podcaster. And I said, hey, I'm a podcaster. I have License to Live podcast. You can look it right here up here on Apple Podcasts. And he kind of smiled, but he really wanted to create his own podcast. And he took the steps to do it. So he hung out with me in the studio all day long while we were recording episodes. I was getting License to Live episodes. I said, see, this is how you can do it. This is how you can make your own podcast. And we talked about strategies to do that. So his podcast will be launching soon. And shout out to Joshua Brown for becoming Mentee of the Year 2022. I know you're going to go on to do some great things. Keep working at it. Things will be amazing in your life.
The time is now to refresh your career. We help doctors, lawyers, executives, and VIPs refresh and restart. Dr. Jarrett's coaching helps you build confidence, gain more credibility, develop more leadership skills, and gain clarity in your career path. Want to climb the executive ladder or branch out on your own? We'll put your career in overdrive. Visit drjarrett.com and sign up for your free strategy session.
So after our lunch break, Dr. Stephanie, our tremendous MC, Dr. Stephanie Freeman, she rocked the stage all throughout the conference, hosting this show, making it run smoothly. I can't thank her enough because she really, really delivered as far as an MC. But it was her time on the stage to shine. And Dr. Stephanie Freeman is a best-selling author. She is a renowned ICU doc, literally practicing from coast to coast. She probably has like 20-something different licenses in different states. I know she was recently in Alaska before she flew all the way back to Philadelphia to deliver this message. But she calls out a big problem in healthcare, a huge problem of healthcare surrounding the abuse of physicians. Take a listen to what she says right here.
What happened to physicians was called and has been called many things. Burnout, moral injury, compassion fatigue, and everybody has experienced these. But what it really is abuse. It is abuse of physicians by healthcare entities. And why do I call it that? Because the abuse of physicians follows a narcissistic pattern, because we do work for some narcissists. So just think about this. So what happens when you first get a job or a new locums assignment, or you're the new kid on the block? What happens?
Oh, you're wonderful.
Exactly. We love you. So that's called the idealization. So then the next thing after that phase is the little steps that they take to devalue you. We hear this all the time. Oh, we love our nurse practitioners. They're just as good as any physicians. Really? Okay. Nurses Week versus Doctor's Day, and we don't even get the full day. Oh, it's Doctor's Day? Oh, we're sorry. We didn't know. Lack of personal protective equipment. Oh, we're sorry. We don't have any N95s, and you're just going to have to share. But you still going to have to go see that COVID patient anyway. And then those of us who worked during this pandemic were either voluntold, where everybody else was getting hazard pay. Physicians were voluntold to work, or some people had to take lower pay as their office hours got cut back, their surgery schedules got cut back. So we got devalued. And so then, we went from idealization, we're so happy to have you, to, you know what, just do what you need to do because you ought to be happy to be here, to replacement. Many physicians lost their jobs. Many physicians were replaced by mid-levels, many of whom they trained. Many of us got fired without cause. Many of our assignments got canceled without cause. So this is like a narcissistic pattern. We went from idealization to devaluation to the ultimate replacement. So at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, physicians were heroes. People were lining up in the streets, clapping for physicians, clapping for hospital staff. As we went to work, we were celebrated for working the front lines. I remember one of the places where I was working at the beginning of the pandemic. I took an assignment in Wisconsin. And I actually volunteered to work in the COVID unit because I was like, we know these people have COVID, and I know we're going to have PPE, so I'm going to be fine. I'd rather work with known COVID patients because at that time, the testing was not great. It took a while to get tested, to get the results. I said, let me just go and work in this unit because I'd rather work with what I know instead of dealing with what I didn't know. So I worked in the COVID unit, and when I tell y'all they fed us, we had, because everything was kind of shut down because, we were all, having to shelter in place. So we had restaurants catering food every day. I'm talking bakeries. We're sending cakes and pies and bread, and we had full meals coming, sandwiches, soups, salads every day. Even the hospital cafeteria would bring food to the ICU because they didn't want us traipsing through the hospital. So, they were treating us as we were heroes, and they really celebrated us for, the sacrifices that we were made. So we were being idealized. And then, we we began to be devalued because you're having these PPE shortages. And so what happened to physicians who actually spoke out about it? They got fired. If they went to social media and were like, hey, we're having to share N95s, or we don't have enough. Do you all have any? Can you bring them to the hospital? Physicians were actually being fired. Those physicians who worked in service lines that were impacted by the shutdowns, they got furloughed. Other physicians were pulled from their services to work in other places. I have a friend who was a dermatologist actually in this area, her dermatology office was shut down, and she had to do what? Work on the COVID floor. And they did not pay her hazard pay. So you have a whole dermatologist seeing adult medicine patients with COVID. So these are some of the sacrifices that a lot of physicians made.
Dr. Stephanie is no joke. She said it to everyone on the stage: quit early and quit often. And I will stand by that advice. If things aren't going right in your life, you've tried to fix it, you've tried to get people to help you fix it, and it still sucks, quit early and quit often and take things back in your own hand. And she showed us how the emotional abuse of physicians goes on to her taking control of her life, becoming a locums doc. And we talked about my C2P2 to resilience, in which you C, connect with others, C, care for yourself, P, have a purpose for your life, and P, keep perspective to keep everything in check. And that's one of my signature talks around resilience. And I often tell pieces of my License to Live story. And this time, my License to Live story was a little bit different because I had both of my younger children in the audience, particularly my now incoming ninth grader, who didn't really know all the things that happened around my License to Live story, especially the details. So it became very chilling for me in order for me to realize what really happened in my life because of the impact on my children and what they had to live through. So believe it or not, this became an impacted moment in my own life when I was able to have some time later that evening talking with my kids about what they heard, that they know these details, and finding out things like they were being harassed at school even while all of this was going on, which really was a tremendous burden for me to have to hear, even after all these years. So it was something that was even impactful and amazing in my own life. And then finally, we had a panel really just about with professionals. We had Dr. Bonzo Reddick, we had Dr. Jeep Nam, we had Nurse Talonda Rogers, and all of these people really know that coaching impacted their life in tremendous ways. And they went on to talk about their life before they invested in mentorship and their life after mentorship. And I talk about that all the time because you guys hear me tell about my coaching stories, about how it impacted my life. And I just wanted other people to hear about coaching and how that really affected their life in order to achieve better goals, getting better jobs, negotiating better contracts, leaving a situation to make a brand new situation that is even better. And all of these things that really, really make life work. So I had a blast with License to Live 22. And yet these are just a few more examples of what you may have missed if you weren't there. So as we prepare for License to Live 2023, I want you guys to make sure that you're staying abreast of everything. Go to licensetolive.com if you want to see the replay. But if you've already seen the replay, you're getting ready, make sure you're at least on my mailing list. So when the date releases, which will be very soon, we'll hear about the 2023 dates. So when that date releases, you can block it off your calendar and you can be there and you won't be saying, I can't believe I missed it. As always, I enjoy hanging out with you guys here. Make sure you're checking me out in between episodes because I often hang out on LinkedIn. And I'm showing what I'm doing in between these episodes on LinkedIn. And that's where you can find me across all social media at Dr. Jarrett. Spell out the word doctor, J-A, 2 R's, E, 1 T. And remember, fire starters, if you or anyone you know has been disengaged, dissatisfied, disgruntled, or disenfranchised with their career, please invite them to join us along this journey. Simply go to your favorite podcast player and subscribe to License to Live. Hey, and while you're there, give me some honest feedback so I can make sure I'm providing you with what you want to hear as we spread this program across the globe. Hey, keep taking care of yourself, keep connecting with others, keep everything in perspective, and I will see you next time.
No matter how disheartening the moment of accusation sounds, how deep the pain of immobilization stabs, or how bleak your future looks, no one can take away your license to live. Keep Dr. Jarrett's expertise handy and unlock your future. Go to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or another podcast player and subscribe right now to Licensed to Live. See you next time.